Okay, so this is going to be a very interesting video. I recently met up with a group of people who were part of an organization called CTNOFA. NOFA stands for Northeast Organic Farming Association of Connecticut. NOFA is a community of gardeners, farmers, landscapers, and anyone who wants to help encourage the healthy relationship with the natural world. Okay, so this is Deb, and what Deb has done is she created a homestead at her suburban home in Connecticut, and she's just doing some amazing things, from raising chickens to collecting rainwater. So what she does is follow a set of principles that help her become more harmonious with nature itself, working with it and not against it. Me and my friend Pete actually had the opportunity to walk with her, and she gave us a tour of her amazing homestead. As you can see, she's extremely resourceful. She builds and creates her own soil by composting things from her home and her garden, and using live animals to help build the fertility of her soil. So come with us and have a walk through Deb's amazing homestead.
This little greenhouse is where I start everything in the spring. Usually in early April I'll start all my peppers and tomatoes, and all my greens and things like that are started in here. Right now it's just a few peppers that are left from the end of the season. Behind you over there is some lettuce. It's actually ready now. I started it just a few weeks ago, but it'll take some cold. This isn't a heated greenhouse. It gets really cold in the winter. But some things will live on through the winter, and then early in the spring I'll start at this odd looking thing. It's called a Mexican gherkin, and it's sort of like cucumber-y kind of thing. It's crunchy, it's good raw, it's good in a salad. It's just an odd little thing. But it grows really well and covers a lot of empty things. So, but this greenhouse has been here for 4 or 5 years. It did collapse in the blizzard that we had a couple of years ago, so we ended up rebuilding the beam across the top and then put this post in the middle. You do have to replace the plastic every few years, so this has probably got another year or so to go. But it's been here for a while, and it's very handy. It starts all kinds of stuff for me. So I grow peppers and all sorts of warm season kind of stuff in here. Stray cucumbers. As you can see, I like rocks for everything. They seem to last forever, so I line all my beds with rocks. They actually hold some of the temperature and things like that in too, so one thing that's good for it. And people bring them to me for wherever they come from, since they're not from here.
Raised beds?
Raised beds, yeah, it helps them drain a little bit, helps them warm up a little bit more in the spring. I don't have the best soil here. It's really sandy. But I've been here a long time, so I add all kinds of good stuff to it, and then it grows nice stuff.
How long have you been working this?
I've been here 21 years.
21.
It's the longest I've ever lived anywhere. So, yes, I had young kids here. They grew up here and all of that. So, yeah, still here.
Got some history here.
Got some history here. This was actually a cast off from somebody that was renovating a kitchen, and she was going to throw it away. So I said, oh, can I have that? It's really heavy. But this is the sink where I rinse and wash my hands and all that kind of stuff. It's hooked up to a hose. And then this is my potting soil. I just leave it in here, and it's got a great little cover on it. And my workstation. Doesn't take up much room, but it's very handy. And so this is where I do a lot of my potting in little pots and that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
And now that I've got my handle, and I can wash my hands. These 5 chickens are less than a year old. I got them last spring as 18-week-old pullets. They are egg layers. They're called red crosses. And I didn't want to deal with baby chickens because they're too much trouble. You have to heat them and make sure they die easily and that kind of thing. So I got these last April, and they started laying right away. So I get 4 or 5 eggs a day. They're really good little layers, and they actually help contribute to the fertility in the garden. I clean up all the straw and hay and things like that. It ends up in the garden and in the compost. And they'll lay for probably 2 or 3 years, and unless you want to know what I do with them afterwards. But they don't actually, you don't actually keep them too long. This is the second batch I've had, so I'm not sure how they'll do through the winter. Yes, she doesn't like that much. And the coop is handmade, and it's critter proof, but and so I lock them up at night. But I don't have any problems with predators and that kind of thing. They've been pretty good about not getting lost, or every once in a while one will fly up over the fence. But those are my chickies.
And what do you feed them?
They eat organic layer feed, and they actually had to teach them how to use this thing because I had a lot of problems with little birds eating all their feed. So they actually had to learn to step on this lever and open. Chickens aren't the smartest things. So it took a couple of weeks of like, here, this is how you do it. And they didn't like the noise. Chickens don't like noises. So it took a couple of weeks to teach them how to do it. But one chicken will stand on it and then the others will all come in. But they did learn how to do it.
Group effort?
Group effort, yeah. Every once in a while you'll see 2 or 3 of them like with their heads stuck in. But they eat a grain mixture, and then they eat scraps. They eat apples and kale, and I try to give them greens every day from the garden. And they've been pretty healthy. I haven't had any problems with except for the one that got picked on when they first got here. But other than that, they get along pretty well. This is a chicken waterer. And I do rinse it out. But they do, if I have it available, they get watered with just rainwater that's collected here. In the winter, I do have a heater for them. This sits on top of just a little heater so it doesn't freeze. But other than that, they need some water every day. Whoops, missed. There you go. Poor things. So for a couple of years in a row, I grew big gourds, I grew little gourds. There's little gourds there, there's gourds over there. And I do all kinds of stuff with them. I mean, I make bowls with them, I make birdhouses with them, I make ornaments with them. So these is what's left that I don't know what to do with. But some of them, you know, and they're really hard. These will hang up here and stay here forever. I just happen to like gourds. You know, we're kind of iffy for growing them here, but you can't grow the really big ones that people do, the drums and that kind of stuff. Actually, I've made musical instruments with them too. So anyway, those are my gourds.
What instrument?
Rattles.
Maracas?
The maracas, the kind where you cover with beads and you shake and that kind of stuff. My husband's a musician, so he's always like looking for things to make noise. So I make noisy things for him. And some of the little ones actually make noise. Make noise once they start to dry.
There's actually an instrument from Africa that they make with gourds at the bottom. They like resonate. It looks like a xylophone. Like, it's called a balafon.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, you should check it out.
Okay, check it out.
Maybe you'll make one.
I know. There's just and people, you know, people with much more artistic talent carve them and draw on them and all that kind of stuff. But I like, you know, I like functional stuff too. I mean, I like bowls and things that look nice. I got a couple in the house, and so.
Definitely one of those natural resources.
It is, and they're easy to grow here. You know, they have a long history. People use them for bowls and dippers. I mean, these are the kind that people always used to cut out and use for water or for food. People stored things in them years ago. They last forever. Yeah. So I find these around the yard. I don't know if these are this year's or last year's. I think they're last year's. But this particular shrub will have 6 or 8 of them on here. So I'll take some of them and I'll move them around the yard so that they don't all hatch in the same place.
They're egg cases?
They're egg cases. Those praying mantises that you see over there will lay those eggs, and there's probably several hundred little babies inside the egg case. They hatch in May. Little teeny tiny praying mantises. They look just like the adults except they're this big. They live all season all through the garden. And then 1 or 2 of them, usually only 1 or 2 survive. You know, they all just like eat each other or get eaten or whatever. And then they'll lay new eggs and then start all over again. So, but I've had a resident population of them since I've been here. So I try to make sure that they kind of go all over the yard. But they've been here as long as I've been here. So it's probably one of the things that eats a lot of the other bugs in this yard. Obviously, it shouldn't eat the bees, but they do.
So wasn't that pretty interesting? That was the home of Deb, and that was her, you know, suburban homestead. You know, she's doing some amazing things, creating her home into a production of food, and it helps the ecosystems around her. You've seen all the amazing things that were in her garden, and that's just a tiny example of what is possible and what kind of amazing things can be done if people started moving forward and starting to work with nature once again. I hope this was a very informative and educational video, and I hope it was inspiring, and maybe it'll inspire you to do some really interesting things at your home if you do have the space. And yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.